do I keep dropping my feed? Quick look. Ooh. What's going on there? Why can't I play that? Sorry, this doesn't normally have such problems. I don't know why that feed's so choppy. What's going on there? Why can't I play that? Yeah, studio mode, see if that helps. Anyway, still waiting for people to join in, so we should be all good to go. So yeah, tonight going to be going over just basically how to import it, how to set it up, a few things to actually look for. You can hear me talking again in the background because I've got the audio on. Check that down. Yeah, is this live? Yeah. That's a bit better. Yeah. See if I can go to my dashboard for a while. Okay. It looks like it's a bit better now. Yeah, alright. Anyway. There we go. Got rid of that. Okay. So as I was saying, yeah, tonight I'll be basically doing a clean install of the program, taking you through a few things that you may or may not know about it, or if you're new to it, a couple of things that I found out when I was going through. It is a brilliant controller, and the shoot one will be coming out soon, which I'm really looking forward to, so that's good. I'll also be going over some of the community add-ons about how to input them into your project and how they work with you, the basic controller. So let me just get rid of this because there we go, that was nice, little smooth thing. Alright, so first things first, while we're waiting for anyone to come up, yeah, so if you do actually have any questions or whatever, join in on the Discord or even on the stream. I'll have the window up so I can actually see what's going on. Oh, excuse me, didn't want to have that open up on top. Yeah, there we go, we've got a couple of people watching. Yeah, jump in on the chat, give us a bell and let us know if there's something that you've come across that you had any questions about, or if there's any kind of bugs that you were coming across. I might not know how to solve them. I'm not a master at the controller. There's a lot of stuff that I don't even know, but I can actually work through it. We've got plenty of time here, and we can have a look, see if we can replicate it and see if we can't fix it up for you. Anyway, you know what, I'm going to put that in the glass so that no corporate branding or anything like that. I just like how I've got green screen out, that was pretty cool. Anyway. Alright, so I'm going to get started. First thing I'm going to be doing is chucking the... There's a few people again. We'll be chucking on the main program. Let's have a look. So normally you would go to your asset store page and download it through. For the ease of it tonight, I've put all the stuff that I'm going to be using tonight into a folder, so I'm actually going to go import the custom packages. As you can see, we've got a few things put in. Now I've already actually got the Polygon Adventure Pack in there, mainly because it was just going to take a little bit of time to import the stuff in. I'm only going to use parts of it every now and then just to showcase how to create characters, things like that. yeah, and then the 3D items megapack's another low poly pack that I've got that I will chuck on as well, just during item creation. But for now, we will go with third person controller melee combat template, and that's the latest one, the 2C I think is the latest one. So we'll open that up. Alright, so everything you need is in here. We can scroll through, you can see there's a lot. Hopefully this, I don't know if my resolution might be a bit too small, or it might come up. If you do have any problems with watching it, let me know, I will try and fix that up. Anyway. So you pretty much get everything in here. I'm going to get rid of the demo scenes because I don't need those. I'm not actually going to be working out of the demo scene today. I'll be making my own scenes, so I can show you how that sort of goes from the start. I don't normally use the demo scenes because there's so much in it. Oh, it's the game over one, it's pretty cool. I will keep all the prefabs in because it might just be a bit easier. Later on we'll make characters from another asset pack, and I'll show you how that works, because it does work pretty much just the same as anything. It's quite simple. Anyway, import. Oh, I've got a bit of pimples on my head. That's great. Yeah, I don't know why it keeps dropping down like that. Why is that doing that? Let's see if I can get the settings up. So just while that loads, I'm just going to see if I can play with my stream settings. No. Scale constant. Helping. Oh, there we go. Massive drop there. What just happened? Yeah, I don't like the way that's doing that. Very dropping. Connection issue. No recommended changes yet. I think I've got 316 kilobyte stream. Must be something to do with recording the window, maybe? Maybe because I have upgraded to the latest OBS, so that could have something. This obviously is taking a fair bit of time, and it can take a little while sometimes. There are a lot of the new materials in the update, so it can take a few minutes. My computer has been on all day as well. Actually, it's my hardware monitor done. Yeah, I probably should have monitored that. Doesn't matter. Okay, cool. So now that that's installed, that is the base program. We don't need to put anything else on top of that just yet. We'll play around with that a little bit later. So we've got the main thing now. If you have the demo, you can play around with that, see how the different bits and pieces work. Otherwise, what we'll try and do now is just create a brand new scene. So let's go with, first thing I usually like to do is just make a terrain. Now, where does it actually put that terrain? One sec. Oh, we were way off. Never mind. The trains, you just kind of standard 500 by 500, so I'm just going to set negative 250, negative 250. That way when we chuck other objects in on the 0 point, it is nice and fun. Now for material, we can leave it blank for now because we're not really going to worry about that. Now what you want to do is you actually get both packs. You've got the basic locomotion and the melee combat. The melee combat's the one that you want to use for the majority of it because it comes with all the other stuff, so all the inventory, all the item holding equipment, equipment panels, all that sort of stuff. The basic locomotion one's just, again, no combat, just for running around collecting coins, that sort of thing. So as you can see, we're going up to the menu, Invector, melee combat, and we want to create a melee controller. This is a melee, doesn't really matter. Anyway, this is your player controller that you can, so you just click on that and it brings up this lovely little window. Yeah, again, hopefully the resolution's fine. So first thing you need to do is get an FBX model. Make sure that the model is set to humanoid, is the little pop-up thing that's around here. That is important because the way that it reads it, it has to use the humanoid controller. Now, generic and humanoid are actually quite similar. Generic allows you to have the animation controller anyway, but yeah, the way that it works is the humanoid skeleton is set up to a specific skeleton, whereas generic can have multiple different types of skeletons but still use the mechanism system. So anyway, you click on the little circle here to bring up your list of a whole bunch of cool stuff. As you can see up here, I'll actually have to prepare that model later. So this one here is the one that comes with the Polygon Adventure Pack. Now, I'll show you how to set that one up later because using that now isn't going to work. None of the materials are actually on it, and oh no, there are actually prefabs already done, so you can. Okay. I was doing it the hard way. I was actually editing the main character in the first place. Never mind. Anyway, we will go with just the biped. We don't even put on the special one. We just get the normal looking dude. Base guy. So here you go. You can move him around, and then you can see. Now, if the character isn't actually a humanoid, there will be an error message up here saying not a humanoid, and this little window won't appear. You'll have nothing there. So you need to make sure that it is set to humanoid so that it can get processed properly. Now the next part's the animator controller. Now that's actually what's going to basically animate the model depending on the inputs that you put in. So open that up again. Now we've got a couple of things here. You've got chest, basic locomotion, and melee, whatever. Anyway, MC is what we're going to call it from now on. So the chest one there is actually for the treasure chest that's in there, so just ignore that for now. Basic locomotion, again, that's this one where you can run around. The combat one is the one that has all of your sword attacks and your weapons and combat in it. So just double click that. Now camera list, here we go. Now there's already some preset camera lists. You can actually make your own ones. I might do that in another one because I don't normally do that. I just quite often just fiddle around with the ones that are on here. They're all perfectly good. So you've got all sorts of ones, 2.5D, if you're making the side scroller that's in 3D, that's how that works for that. Third person is your basic third person camera that allows you the free rotation around the target object. Third person shoulders is basically when you're locked onto a target in the third person camera mode, it does that over the shoulder look and keeps your target keeps your aim on a specific target that you're locked onto. But this one here is for an actual close-up system. It's more useful for when you've got a shooter. It's like a third person shooter where you need that over the shoulder look to see where you're aiming the weapon. Not really something that I use a lot in this. I did try it the other day for a little test project, but again, it is very much for if you're trying to do fine aiming with the model. I think that's probably actually in there for in the build up to the shooter template that they're bringing out. Now the beat 'em up, that's an interesting one. I haven't actually played around with it. I just saw it there the other day. I think when I put it on, it was kind of like the isometric, or at least a semi top down. Oh, whoops, what happened there? Hovered over it too much. A sort of a mix between ISO and top down, and maybe even 2.5D. I think that's more of like your side-scrolling beat 'em up ones that you do like Streets of Rage, that sort of thing. I think that's the idea behind it. I haven't actually played with it though, so I don't know. Again, it's automatically picking things. It doesn't like me sitting here waiting. Isometric, of course, is your top down but 45-degree angle. Well, I think it's actually set to something else, but it's like your Diablo style camera. Top down again is pretty much top down, so looking straight down onto the target. Again, you can angle it, things like that. But isometric's good for when you have the isometric camera, which is the orthographic camera. Sorry. And then VMansion is one that I think actually is supposed to be for the demo. The VMansion setup is actually single point cameras that will stay at a static point and will just aim the camera at you as you move through the area, and then switch to a new camera once you go into a new area. So you can set up an adventure game like that, which is actually quite interesting. I haven't played with that option either. But it is pretty cool that it's there. Anyway, we're just going to go for the straight third-person camera. This is your generic action-adventure one, and so that's the kind of project that we'll work on for now. That sounds good, so let's go with that. So that's the camera list. Now the HUD controller is your heads-up display. Click on that. Probably not the best idea that you do. Just use the one that comes with the basic setup. I haven't actually substituted any other one. I've always just modified off that. So that's all good. Yeah, need to know how it works. There's a video tutorial. Invector have made a bunch of tutorials for the different aspects, and I've learnt a few things off there as well. But you just got to take time to sit down and figure it out. You could probably play along with them as well. But yeah, but this hopefully this video just puts everything all together and makes it a bit easier for a few people. Let me just check. Yeah, we got going. Cool. Alright, so now that we've done that, I'm going to click create, and now let's put the controller, third-person controller, put the game controller, the event systems in there, and the UI is in there as well, and it's also chucked on the scripts for the third-person camera. So if we click on the third-person controller and just go F, zoom in on it, so as you can see it's already placed it at the 0 point, sets up all the capsule colliders and everything as to where it should be. You can see that it's built around the model pretty well. Obviously it's the inbuilt model, so it's quite easy to get it exactly where it needs to be. Now from this point here we actually can just click on play, and hopefully that brings up my game screen. There we go. Ding. You got your character now. As I said, it's got the free rotating camera. What I actually would like to do, I've got the Xbox controller with the USB thing, so as you can see, built in. Now the input is built into the package itself, so it automatically accepts. As soon as you start using the controller, you can see that the heads-up display changes over on the right-hand side here. You can't see because my mouse disappears. Excuse me. So yeah, you can see that it automatically changes and everything is as it should be. You get crouch, you get up, you get your roll, jump. Now, we don't actually have, as you can see, I'm using the shoulder buttons, pressing buttons, nothing's happening. We don't actually have the combat yet. Because we need to put on a few more scripts. Not too sure exactly why the wizard for the controller, when you select melee controller, doesn't already have that put in. I think it's because there's actually a process that you need to do for structuring. If you want to put on ragdoll, things like that, that's got to come on first. So anyway, that works, that's fine. Cool. Actually, did I do the crouch already? I think I did. Yeah, there you go, so the camera changes a little bit, and you can crawl around. Alright, so I'll stop that, and chuck that down. Okay, so as I was saying with the third-person controller, as you could tell there was no sound with the footsteps or any kind of that crazy stuff. So what happens is when you build when you create the object, it comes up with a third-person controller script, which is your basic script for the controlling of the NPC or the player. Although this is, yeah, I think the other one might actually be NPC. Anyway, this is your basic script, so you can choose the locomotion type, which is basically free with strafe. So what that means is that you get the free movement, which is the running around and things, and then the strafe. When you lock on, you can do that strafe. If you want it to be only strafing around, you just click only strafe, and then it's like you're always locked on. Or if you want only free because you don't want anything locked on, you just select that. Whoops, don't want to rotate by world. You can lock the camera, lock the movement, all that sort of stuff. I don't really use that. Quick stop and in. Not 100% sure. It's to do with if you are, like if you're running and then all of a sudden you're going to stop and then turn around and rotate really quick, it actually plays a separate set of animations to try and make that look a lot smoother. Otherwise, you get a break in the animation as it tries to switch to something else that it's not linked to in the mechanism thing. That's my understanding of it anyway. It might be a little bit different. We'll look at that later, but right now it's not a big issue. The air control, the jump forward, jump height, not the best to play around with these. I've played around with them a couple of times, but there's a massive difference between 1 and 5. 0.5. And there's even so a massive difference between 0.5 and 0.6. So I leave that usually as the standard, and if there's something that I should be able to jump on with my character, I'll usually modify the level around it rather than play with this. 0.6 is pretty much the maximum I would go, and I can point that out later on as we go through. Actually, we've got time now. I'll play it now. So as you can see, 0.5 now. I'll demonstrate that. So jump height, yeah, not too bad. Don't really have anything to make it relative to, so actually what I'll do, let's go with 3D object a cube. And this has got a collider built into it, so that's good because it's set to default, and that's our collision layer, which I'll go into a little bit later. So if we run around now, you can see there's a little thing there. If I go jump, yep, jump on top of it. Cool. Alright, so that's alright. So what we'll do next, actually I'm going to drop down this light because it's giving us a little bit more definition. Control D, and we're going to lift that up a little bit more. Alright, so let's have a look. So this is our little level, and we can jump up onto that box and we can jump up onto there. If we drop down here, if we go to jump, it looks like, we can almost make it, but we can't make it up on there. But if we do go to third person controller and we switch the jump height to, let's go to 1, I'll show you what happens. Boing! So you can see there's a lot, and then of course there's a full height set in the system that if you go down for a certain amount of time, you do that fall over, and if it's even longer you can get damaged and die. So we're going to change that again. If we go back to 0.6 this time, you can see that, yep, we'll get up onto there, and that's not too bad. It is a pretty high, so you can see when I jump and then land again from that height, because the jump height's so high, you're still getting that really high full value. So yeah, it's not super good to play around with it, unless you can adjust that full height, but I'm not too sure where that is. I'd have to look into that. But as you can see, it is only a slight change, and it's within reason. Anyway, we'll stop that. Yeah, jump height, leave that as 0.5. Alright, cool. Now, let us have a look. So yeah, so go back on then, grounded setup. I've never really played with this, actually. Ragdoll velocity, yeah, we'll chuck on a ragdoll later. And the debug window you can put on, I usually actually leave it off. I don't particularly bother with it. I'm never looking at that particular stuff. Step offset start. That's got to do with, I think, when you search for stairs. Oh yeah, they spelled stairs a little funny, but that's alright. Offset. Start. Alright, so that's for, when you're moving onto stairs, the way that it plays the thing. Smooth, step smooth, triggering on ramps, lower these, and difficulty on steps. So that's got all to do with the physics, and the max angle to walk, you can adjust that, so that's so when you got hills, or if you got ramps and things like that, you want some ramps to not be accessible, even if they look at, I don't know, and then other things that just you definitely don't want accessible. Now, this is for adjusting for the player. The NPCs use the mesh stuff, so while they're still affected slightly by slope limits on their own controllers, it's mostly done with the NavMesh. If you bake it into the NavMesh that it's unwalkable above a certain angle, that's what you want. But if you've got a very detailed terrain that might have a lot of smaller angles, sometimes you can get really funny results in your NavMesh, so that's all about level design, and go into that another big time. Anyway, melee combat input. So open up the input manager. This is all your different buttons. Now, I don't play around with this too much either. Click move layer is set to default. Basically, that's if you're using the click to move controller type. I don't usually just use the keyboard or the mouse control. Yeah, if you're using click to move, you can obviously set the different layer so that if you click on certain things, it won't trigger, because there's been a few times, a couple of times where you do that and you'll click on an object and then it'll be on the side of like this block here will be the move thing, and then your character will just keep sitting there trying to move onto that target, and it won't work because it can't walk up a wall. So if you actually set your click move layer to ground or floor or whatever you put your floor as, you can fix that up. When you have multi-level stuff that you want to do, that would be another layer of level planning there. You'd probably have to put in empty game objects with colliders on the areas or the surfaces that you do allow the walking, and that way you can pretty much keep all of your objects and all of your stuff above the ground on the terrain layer separate, so that you're not clicking on the side of them, but then you click on the collider itself on the top of the platform, and that's what you'd be walking on. So you'd have that set to the same as the terrain layer, which is one way of getting through it. I haven't really played around with it because I don't use the click to move yet. The click move control system I don't think does combat properly yet. It's not set up. If you knew what you're doing, you probably could actually change it to do like a Diablo style combat, or your Diablo clone. That might be a bit of fun, but yeah, a lot of this is done for the third person action adventure style, and then when the shooter comes out it'll be cray, so that's awesome. If you couldn't already tell, I'm really looking forward to that. Anyway, so yeah, gameplay input style, direction on the or click to move. So there you go, that's where the option is there. Now, these are the other inputs. So you've got default inputs, which are all your moving around, and the action buttons, all that sort of stuff. Camera settings, so rotating the camera and the camera zoom, and then the combat inputs, so your attacks and punch, kicks, that sort of stuff, and blocking as well. Now the good thing that they've actually done with the 2.x system is that you can actually select which ones you don't want to use. So say I'm making a game, I really only want to have just your very basic inputs. Like if I'm making a mobile game, I don't want to have 50 million buttons because I've only got so much screen space, and that's a massive problem. So you can actually click if you don't want a certain thing. So say I'm making a game, I don't want to crouch. I'm going to have a top-down game. I'm never really going to be using crouch for anything. I just click use, and now the crouch input's gone. There's no more crouch. If I want it back in because I changed my mind, just click use again, and then I've got the crouch back in. So that's actually really handy because it can let you select and deselect the things, and then you can use those any of those map buttons for something else, something that you're actually going to use. As for putting in new inputs, I'm not too sure if that's available. I'm sure you probably could fiddle around with the script to put in some new buttons. Mostly action stuff is where that would be. You just have the action button trigger whatever action and set that up in the action script. Anyway, we'll close that one. And then of course we've got the capsule collider and rigid body. So the rigid body is what we use for the physics, and then the capsule colliders for, as we said, we've got the collider. You can see it here. That gives you your height on the map and everything like that. Sorry, not height on the map, but as in when you're walking on the train, that's what stops you from falling through. So now that we've got that out of the way, first things first, to build up the rest of the model. So I'll try and chuck everything on it. So we actually go to basic locomotion for the next section. Components. Now you've got a bunch of different things. You've got head track, hit damage particle, ragdoll, footstep, moveset speed, and culling fade. Yeah, not huge into what the moveset speed stuff's supposed to do. It is used for when you're using certain animations. So if you don't have root motion animations, I think that can actually help get around that and actually move your character. Because you notice that if you do play around with the animations and you put in ones that aren't root motion, your character animation will play, but you won't actually move anywhere on the map because it is set to play for moving through root motion. But the move set speed, I think, is actually supposed to help that. But anyway, so what we want to do now is, I do like to put on the footstep, but I think you actually put on the ragdoll before you put on anything else. So we'll go with ragdoll now, and as you can see, this brings up this little wizard here. The animator, yep, just chucks that in. Now this is where if you've got a different model, you may have to play around with this, but right now we're just using the standard model, and it's perfectly fine. I have used it with a few other models from other asset packs, and it's worked fine. I've never had any super issues with it. As long as your model is a humanoid model, it's all pretty much built in straight through. Proportional mass. I don't play with any of this stuff. If you're making a game where it's got some sort of crazy physics on it and you really want to muck around with the things, we could probably look at that. But for now, we just do this. Go create. And then that chucks on that. Now, let's just have a look. So it wants to ignore tags for different things. So it's already set up for that. So it ignores the weapons and items. It's supposed to say items, that's alright. And it ignores other ragdolls, and it ignores the weapons. So anything tagged with that won't actually affect it. Now you can actually have a noise source, so the collision source and audio clip. Yeah, cool. Make some sort of noise. I think when you're pushing around the ragdoll, it'll make noises. You can have the debug on it. That'll give you a debug to the console or to the debug window. And remove physics after death. Now, sort of seems a bit silly because I do like to have the death with ragdoll effect, because that's the best thing. Like beating up the NPC enemies on here and then pushing their bodies around and watching them bounce off all sorts of things. It's fun. But what will happen is if you have this box ticked here, once the player is registered as dead, it will remove the ragdoll script and there'll be no more ragdoll, so it will just be the object on the ground. So we'll leave that there for now. Don't need to touch any of that. One thing we can do though is back up here. Now we've got the health and stamina. Health and stamina section. You've got max health recovery, blah blah blah. Death by, and this one here is animation. So we'll go to the animator controller when it registers as dead, and it will play the animation death. This one here, you can actually do animation with ragdoll, which plays that death animation and then also activates the ragdoll in the system. So if your animation's playing on something and it falls over and then you're on an edge, it will activate the ragdoll and the ragdoll will take over at the end of animation. Otherwise, you can just go straight to ragdoll. So you will die on the spot and then the ragdoll physics will take over. The character will collapse and we'll just ragdoll from there. So I do like doing that, but we'll do the animation with ragdoll, and that's we'll try and die on the edge of something. Anyway, take that out. Now the next one we want to chuck in, basic locomotion components. We want to do footstep. So footstep from texture, humanoid, debug texture name. Yeah, it's something cool. You'd put that on when you're really working out with your level, and you want to get more in depth in this. The texture name will show that whenever you're walking on something, it will show whatever that collider hits into. It will come up with the name of that texture, so that you can go, oh, that texture is supposed to make this sound, so when we go into the custom surfaces, you'll be able to put it through there. We don't have any extra surfaces to put on just yet, so we'll just go with the default one. And you click this here, and you go, ooh, where are they? Default surface. So chuck that on there, and that's the default surface, which is here. We'll open that up. So texture material unnamed, doesn't really have it, so it's just going to play it for everything. Audio clips, it's already got that, so it's actually plays as the default, plays the asphalt sound. Audio source, mixer, and then a particle object as well, so every time your foot collides with this object, it will play a little puff of smoke, and we can see that when we're playing around on this in a minute. So that'll be that, and we'll go back to the controller. I'll go into that in a bit more depth a little bit later when we start playing with a bit more things. Now I think that's all we need from there. Hit damage particle is super cool. Don't have any particle effects to show at the moment though. I might do that next time because I'll set up some nice ones. I have done it on another project where it was a cartoon beat 'em up, and it comes up really cool. I really like that effect, and when the shooter comes out too, there'll be a little bit more you can play with that, so that's going to be good. Now the head track is an interesting one. I haven't really played with this much, but say you've got animated tags. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, obstacle layer. So obstacle layer. So if there's an obstacle in the way of the head track target, it won't look at it. Distance to detect 10. Alright, so what this does is the head track is, it controls the angle of your head. So you're running along and you put the head track tag on an object like a statue, which you can actually see in the demo as well. One of the first statues you come past has a head track on it, and as you're running past, your character will look up at it. I didn't notice that at first until I started looking at these things. So basically, yeah, you'll run past the thing and it'll make your character automatically look at it, and you want that when you've got say you've got an objective or something that you're going past, or if there's something that you want to draw the player's interest to. By moving the character's head, you'll draw their interest to that thing. They might go towards it, or they might just ignore it and keep going with what they're doing. We'll play with that one a little bit later, I think. I might teach myself how to do that. A couple of quick things on it. Head weight, body weight. Not really sure how that all works, whether it's about how fast your head spins to it or something. Obviously the transform for the head is Invector head for this one because it's using that. If you've changed any of that sort of stuff, you can obviously change that in there. Distance to detect. Now this is the thing, so obviously you don't want to be able to look at it from the other side of the map, so this is basically you will get within a certain range of the object. It'll have a collider on it or something, and there'll be a radar sent through whenever it gets called. And you will, if you're close enough, the character will move its head, and then when you move it out of that range, it'll just look away again, so it's like you can ignore it. We're going to get rid of that for now because it's not really something that we need. So yeah, there's nothing left on here that I really want to get. Actually, I'll have a look at the culling fade. What's this? Oh yeah. Cool. I don't know. Because the culling's obviously hiding stuff, and I think it might be to do with if you move in front of something or behind something. So when you move your character, when you move your camera behind the character, it can actually fade that character down so you can see through it slightly. I think we were looking at this the other day. It got brought up on the forums the other day, and I never paid attention because I've never really needed to fade the character. I've always needed to fade objects around the character, and I've got another asset to do that. But this looks like it's the thing of if your camera goes right up behind the character can actually turn translucent so you can see through, and that's why it's got all the materials here, and then the optional fade materials, but we'll get rid of that, we don't need that right now. Remove component. Alright, so now we'll move on to the melee combat stuff. So yeah, back to the Invector menu, melee combat components. Now you've got the manager, the waypoint area, weapon holder manager, and item manager. First one we want to put on is just melee manager. Now this is the one that allows us to attack. Once you put it on, it's pretty much done. You've got the attack. As you can see here, we've brought up the collider boxes and the hit zones for the arms and feet. Actually, hang on, let me go back to the footstep. I'm just going to drop these 3D icons back down because we're getting in the way there. Alright, before we go into that, just back on the footstep from texture, as you can see, when you put on the footstep one, there's these little circles here. These are where your feet, if they don't line up with the feet on your model, then you've obviously got some sort of problems going on, but they should be tied in with the bone, that's the foot bone. So these are the ones, these are the colliders that when they collide with the texture will create the sound, or pick the sound from whatever's listed on your system there, the default thing, and then play the little puff of smoke. So yeah, that's what they are. But as you can see, yeah, we've got the hitboxes now for the leg. Now the body members, you can add extra body members. So say if you are making like a thing where you want to do a headbutt, or you've got a zombie attack and you want the head to affect a hit, that's when you do go add an extra body member. Member type is human or generic. That's interesting. So this could actually work for generic models as well. So yeah, so you're creating the hit zone. So you got human, you want to create the head, so you go body part, head, and then create, and then that'll create another one here. I'm not going to do that for this one, I'm going to leave that for now. We might try that for an NPC later on, so just cancel that. Default info. Now this is the one that I missed a while ago. I was trying to figure out how to affect how much damage a punch and a kick would do, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I was stuck for like a day trying to figure out where it was. I was looking at all the scripts, couldn't find it. And then someone on the forum said, oh, it's in default info. I completely missed the button that was there. So here's the button for for combat. Default damage is 10, so you can change that to whatever number, and that's just the amount that of damage you will do each punch and kick. Default attack distance, usually leave that as 1, because it pretty much will be the hitboxes while you move within that distance. And then the stamina cost of how much it costs to punch and kick. Stamina recovery delay. So of course you'll do your punch and your attack animations, and then there'll be a short delay before from when it's charged your stamina before the stamina actually starts building back up. So the 1 there is the huge one. Defense rate is 50, and defense range 90. I think that means it's just a 90-degree arc from the front of your character, or where the blocking is, which is where the default animation is like this. So it's a 90-degree arc from the front of your character where it will block damage. Anything coming around on the sides or behind you will still hit you and it won't get blocked. So you can adjust that, so you can make it that it'll be complete. If we go 180, can't do a 361. I'll probably look into that later. You could probably adjust how that works. But anyway, so 90 degrees. And defense rate 50, because I think it either blocks 50 points of damage or it will block 50%. I'll have to double check that one, whether it's a percentage or whether it's the static number. Now you got your weapons here, left weapon, right weapon. So from this point here, we could actually make the player character will always have a specific weapon and always have either in both hands or in just one hand, and a shield in the other hand, or just empty in the other hand. And we don't have to worry about putting in an inventory or any other sort of system like that, so you can switch about. You can just have a character that has one weapon throughout the entire game, or probably even automatic pickup weapons, so you can upgrade your weapon and just switch it out with another one, but without having to store it and then equip it. That'll just be an auto-equip system. Basically, you can drop... I can't... Hang on. Yeah, well, as you can see down in this little section here, I think I've got my graphics and me blocking it. So, hang on. There you go. So you got your left weapon and your right hand weapon here. You can actually drop the weapons when we get them into this slot, and they will appear when you spawn on in the hands of the player character. But for now we've just got that, so chuck that in. Now we go back to the components. We also want to put in actually, you know what, we're just going to play with that right now. Let's see how we go. So we can see already that there's the footsteps that have spawned. Walk around again. Yeah, you should be able to hear the footsteps now too, unless, yeah, I've got that on full ball, so you should be able to hear it. There you can see the character can run around with the little puffs of smoke. When we jump, plonk, plonk. And when we punch, we actually punch and kick as well. So now that's in, and we can block. As I said, yeah, a 90-degree arc with the blocking there. So anything coming in front in that 90-degree range, from the shoulders out like that, will be blocked. Anything from the sides and the back will come through. So yeah, alright. Cool, so that all works. Actually, hang on, if you punch the wall, yeah, so you can see now what's actually happening is there's also recoil that they've put in the game. Bonk. So I can sit here, punch, and then kick, get a bit closer. Okay, well it's a bit hard to do here. With the sword it's a little bit more pronounced, but basically I'm punching into an object and it goes up, no, and recoils by playing the thing, so you can't just keep punching into a wall and do nothing. You can actually set it so that there is no recoil, and we'll have a look at that in just a sec. Yeah, oh, there you go, there was a section that I missed with that recoil. So who you can hit. Now if you open that up and you scroll down a little bit, you can see the hit damage tags here. So at the moment there's only one element in the hit damage section, which is enemy. So you have that set because this is the player. We obviously want to be able to hit the enemy. If you have any other type of NPC, so like a friendly one or a companion, that usually is I think is the default one that it's set for as companion. You could set 2 here so that you can actually have friendly fire on, and if we're doing a multiplayer one, you might have to set it up for player as well, but this template is not really built for multiplayer yet, but multiplayer is possible with it, but right now it's just mostly single player. And then we've got here, so we'll minimise that. Actually, no, we'll bring it up anyway because it's fun. Use recoil is ticked. So as we see now, before we were recoiling, but now we're going to play, and I think you should see that I'll be able to punch through the boxes. Yep, plonk, plonk, plonk. So no more recoil. Yeah, but when we click on that, we draw recoil gizmos. Okay, you can actually see it. Plonk. Yeah, well, it's not going to work because I don't have the dual screen stream. Yeah. Alright, so we'll take that off. Yeah, so use recoil range 90, so as you saw with that, that's pretty much what the 90 degrees does. Oh, way. Okay, so it's like it's mirrored, so that 180 will actually... So the 180 that we went through before with the blocking, which was, yeah, here, default defense range, that if I did set that to 180, that would actually cover the entire 360 around you. Obviously there's just something to do with 180 in the way it's written, maybe it's mirrored or something, I don't know. Anyway, recoil range, set that back to 90. And the hit recoil layer is set to default. So obviously if you want it to recoil on certain layers but not on others, so say I've found a lot of times when I am building something, depending on what model I use, and if I play around with the animations, I can actually constantly hit into the ground as I'm playing through the attack animation, which it gets really annoying because you do the first 2 attacks and then the third one, when it stabs out, it actually goes a bit low, and depending on what weapon or what player model you've got and what colliders you've got on it, you can hit the ground and then turn into a recoil, and then that just basically wipes out the third attack if you moveset. So you can set up the recoil layers. So if you had your terrain mesh on a different layer, so it's set on default, nothing really else we could put. You can make another layer there, change that around, and then in here you hit recoil layer, you can actually take it completely out, so you wouldn't have it hitting on the floor, and that would save you that sort of problem. And the same again if you're constantly finding that your player will be slamming into the wall, even if they're not really near it, you would probably end up going and taking those out, and maybe substituting in a thinner collider for the wall, so if they have to be really close to the wall for it to go off. Because yeah, you can do a lot of really wide sweeping swings, and if you're standing like here, you might still hit those and it'll stop your attack mid-attack, and then you pretty much got the thing of I'll just turn off recoil altogether, which I often do in a lot of the demo stuff that I do. Anyway, moving on from that, so we've got the fighting object in that now, and we want to add in the ability to pick up items and get swords, things like that. So next one we got to put on is the item manager. So this thing here is what gives us our inventory and spawns also the heads-up display for items, which doesn't show up there, but it will when we actually jump up. So, so you've got here, this is the script. The prefab for it is the one, if we click on that, that's actually the prefab that does the little menu system on in the heads-up display. It's not actually in the hierarchy yet until the game plays, and then it loads it up. But as you can see here, there's a little bit of input mapping, so you can choose to, I don't want to be able to actually open the inventory, I just want to be able to collect items and then have it auto do whatever, or store like automatically. So if you want to collect potions, things like that, it will store it automatically in the potion section and it'll be automatically equipped. Or if I don't want to be able to let the player be able to remove equipment because you know, want to drop it, or it's going to die after 3 uses, or however you set it up. And then of course the horizontal, vertical, submit and cancel, that's just for your moving around the menu system when you open it up. Equipment controllers, so you got a little bit of stuff in there. Next item. So this is for when you've actually got, you'll see there's three little boxes will appear in the left hand side of the screen at the bottom left, and you can have a button there that allows you to use item input, previous item input. Yeah, so previous item, so you can change that around. Yeah, cool. And each one of them you can have up to, I think, like 2, or you can actually set it to even more items that you can switch through by using on the controllers, using the D-pad, or on the thing it's using the arrow keys on the keyboard. It allows you to switch between, like, you know, different weapons that you have equipped, and so you can keep equipping different stuff, or if you've got different potions you want on the quick bar, it allows you to do that, and this is how you control them in here. I won't go into huge detail because I don't normally do it. If anyone does want to know a bit more about that, next time I do one of these streams we can have a look then. Just want to see, nobody's jumped in to ask anything. No, cool, still just me. Alright, so now that we've got that, let's go back to our third-person controller again. Alright, so that's that item list data. If you click on that, you'll see that there's this special built data system. So this is your items list. Now this will basically tell your inventory and your game what items are available to the player in the game. So if we open that, we push that button, that opens up this item list editor, which is a new window, and the default one that you get with the system comes with already all the default items that come with the template in there, already set up and ready to go. So they're actually really good to have a look at, because you can see, as you can see here, it's got a description already written up for them. It's got the name, the item type, everything. So you can use these as templates themselves for how you do it. And you see you've got the original object and then the drop object. So what this does here is that the original object is actually the object that will spawn when you have that item equipped. So this one here is the VX, and if we have I'm just going to move this off to the side. When we click on VX here, you can see that this is a weapon. So a little comment, keep the mesh pointing forward, the blade pointing right. Yeah, that's pretty groovy. I never really paid any attention to that, I've always just played around with my weapons. So you got the hitboxes, things like that. We'll look at that a little bit later, because when we create a weapon. But as you can see here, that this is an actual weapon item. It's got the weapon script on it and everything. So we will go back to this now. So yeah, the icon that it uses, so this little picture here, you can actually change that here. So when you're setting up your own weapons and your own items, you can use them from that. That's the original object. The drop object. Now this is actually a different object. The default template system uses a single object to encompass all the dropped items. So like, say if you were making an RPG and you didn't want to have to spawn, like, you didn't want the items that were falling on the ground to look like the items that they actually are, if you just wanted like a little loot bag or any kind of other object to represent the dropped item, you would do like they've got here, where it's collectible equipment. If I move this off again, we'll look at the actual item. So as you can see, it's got the item collection script on it. Now, instead of having to make a drop item with the item collection script on every single item that you have in the game, it saves you a lot of time and it makes it a lot easier to actually have the loot bag where you've only just got one single object that you have to worry about. So as you can see, this is like they've mixed a couple of their weapons and that together to create a single mesh that's translucent and looks pretty cool. And then they put the item collection on here. Now it's blank, but the message is get item, because when you go over it, it'll click it the target. There's nothing in here. What happens is when the item drops, this all gets filled out for that particular item. So that's how that works. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail a bit later on, I think, or maybe even another time. Alright, now the attributes. So you can go to add an attribute now. These do different things, so might be actually we'll save that for the potion, because we'll look at that now in custom settings. So you've got equip ID 3. Now this here is for when you have the weapon holstered, which we'll look at a little bit. We'll look at next with the weapon holder. I'm going out of focus there. Yeah, when you have it holstered, you'll pop it on a certain section of your body, depending on what the item is and where you want it to go. Then you give it the equip ID. Now that actually plays into the animator, which we'll look at later, and that shows you where you're grabbing it from. So the animator has several points. It's got over the right shoulder, over the left shoulder, over the left hip, and over the right hip. And then I think there's one that's just, yeah, there's a couple of different draw points. So actually, there's 6 draw points that I know of. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's 2 others from somewhere. Anyway, so the equip ID just tells it which animation it's to play when it's going through the equip item animation. So it picks from those 6 there which ones it wants to draw from. So when you make the item, you basically decide where it would be on the body when you place it, and then you just pick that ID number from that animation set. Custom equip point, again, is when you're setting up those weapon holsters and you want to have it go from a certain location. That's where it will equip from, or that's where it will be when it's in the weapon holder or something like that. Now the equip delay time is actually quite interesting. So because it's spawning the weapon into the hand during a certain point, if it's displaying on your body, you don't want to have the axe still sitting on your body and then have it spawn in your hand as you're playing the animation, because then it'll look like you've got 2 axes and it just looks a bit silly. So this equip delay time is basically setting up a delay in the animation, a delay between the time that the animation starts and when it actually appears in your character's hand. So that way it adjusts the thing. So what would normally happen if it was set to 0, there would be no delay and it would appear in your hand straight away. Now if you're reaching across your body, if your animation shows that you're reaching across to pick it up, there's the milliseconds between when your hand moves to pick it up to when it would disappear out of your holster and appear in your hand. And if you set that to 0, then there'll be no delay. So as soon as you start moving your hand across, the weapon's already in your hand, and that just looks silly. So it can work in certain instances. Like you don't really have to have the equipable thing if you're making a funny game anyway. But if you're trying to do like a nice realism game, or you're going for a Witcher style game which has just brilliant graphics, you'd want to put that in there to try and make it as seamless as possible. So you would have that delay, and you pretty much just have to judge that by going through the animation itself, finding when those points are, and just getting that the finest delay that you can get. Anyway, we'll move on from that. So again, the health potion, the same thing. There's no original object, because when you drink it, it doesn't appear in your hand. It doesn't get equipped, because it's a consumable. If you have a look at item type here, you've got consumable, weapon, and shooter. Shooter is not really used yet. That'll be on the shooter template, but it's there for whatever reason I've got it there. Then you've got stackable, which means you can have more than one in the same item slot, and the max stack number is 10. Now the attributes. So again, sorry, there's no object. It's got the icon, and then there's the collectible equipment, because it's the same drop object. Now, yeah, the attributes is health 25. Now that's used for for healing. So it's basically saying that when this object here, when it's used, the attribute that it's affecting will be health, and it'll be 25 points that it's affecting to that. Now, that actually comes in handy later. If we were to go and try and use it now, it wouldn't actually work. We've got to set up the player to be able to do that, and that was something that I didn't know about until someone else in the forums helped. Anyway, so equipable ID 0 because there's, I think it comes from the belt or comes straight down from the belt and up. Equipment delay time, yeah, 5, doesn't really work, default point, doesn't matter. So that's pretty much how that works. And then the shield, again, pretty much the same stuff as the sword. Doesn't really do anything more. It's the actual weapon itself, has all the stats of how it blocks. Anyway, now add item here, so you can jump in here. We will actually deal with that later, I think. And item attributes also later, because right now we're just trying to get through the player. Close that off. Back on the third person controller. So the start items, we can add an item here. We want to add an axe. And we want to add... Oh, it's already... Yeah, okay. So this is just saying that there's already an item, which is an axe, in the thing. So we can't add another axe, because you can't have more than one as the starting equipment. So it won't let you add more than one, because you would just put in the amount here, 2. So yeah, it's already there. Health potion. So we can add that. Now if we go to add item, it says it already exists, and we go, but we want to have more than one. Well, that's fine. We just go here and we say we want 3 potions. Cool. Done. Equip points. So this here is equip point name. So you got your left arm and your right arm. Now these 2 points here are used for when you're putting equipment like swords and shields on. Excuse me. So the left arm is basically your shield point. You can change that around, I think, but go with the flow. Left arm for shield, and people in this world are right-handed. It's easier to do. Excuse me a second. I was going to go off camera. There we go. Excuse me. No. So yeah, as you can see here, set left weapon is the action that it does when it comes through, and then here set right weapon as well. Oh, excuse me. Alright, so that's the equipment points. We'll close them. You can add more equipment points, so that can come into play a bit later in case you have other things that equip, such as armors. So you can set up equipment points for helmets, chest pieces, boots, rings, whatever else you're going to chuck onto your character. You can set them all up. If you have a look in the add-ons section of the forum, there is actually already an armor kit made for, like specifically for Invector, and it's absolutely brilliant. I suggest you go grab that. That will handle any kind of armor system that you're thinking of putting in, and there's a lot of stuff I can go through in another day about how to set that up, and we can look at that. But for now, we'll just leave it with the sword and the default stuff. So we'll close that up. Attribute events. Now this is we need to alter this in order to make the potions work. So if we go 1, let me put this one here. Health, I think is what it's called. Yeah. Okay. So runtime only, and the object is the third-person controller, and then the function is third-person controller change health. Is it health up or just health? I think it's just health. We'll leave it as that. We'll see if that works. If not, I'll figure it out. Alright, so what's actually happening here is we want to set up that this player can actually be affected by the potion. Now, if you remember before when we showed it through, when I showed it through, I'm like the Queen now. When we showed you, when I showed you before, the health potion had that attribute on it, which was health and 25. So what that actually meant is that it was affecting the health attribute, which is this, by 25 points, by adding 25. If you put it as negative 25, it would poison you, basically. But yeah, it's giving us that health, but we need to be able to actually say that what is that actually affecting. So the player needs to be able to accept that attribute. So we need to set that up here, which is what we've done. So we've set it to 1, we can set it to more because there's going to be other potions that we want to affect, so you'd have to put them in one by one, but for today's demonstration we're just going to do the health. So we want it to happen at runtime because the editor is not going to do anything for us anyway, doesn't matter. Runtime, and we dragged on the third person controller, which is basically just looking for the third person controller script, so anything with that on it, or I think actually the NPC script might be there as well. You chuck that on there, and then we looked for the actual function that it was going to affect. Now the function that we were looking for was in the third person controller menu, and then all the way up to change health was the one that we wanted. So, excuse me, actually we'll look well with it. So as you can see here, attributes that it's affecting health, 25. Cool, good, great, let's go. So that's that for that. Now events. I haven't played with this at all, actually. So you could set this up so that whenever you open or close the inventory, it could play an effect. It could play a sound. You could even set it up so that it. I think it already does pause the game, although it might not. I haven't tried that, but you can get it so it will pause the game, or if you have anything else, any other object that has a function on it, the script, you can trigger that function, is basically what it is, when you open and close the inventory. On the use item, so if you use a particular item, again you can call a function, or if you equip an item, or if you unequip an item, it can do a certain function. So maybe you equip an item that's a cursed item, or you do the thing. Anyway, it can play a sound, it can do whatever. We'll play with that one later on when I actually really learn what it's supposed to do. For now, we'll leave it as that. Now the other component we can put on is the weapon holder manager. I've played around with this only a little bit recently, and I've had a lot of troubles with it because it doesn't seem to work for me, but I'm doing something wrong with it. I'll look into that a little bit later on so that I don't spend an hour trying to figure it out, because that will make for a boring video, so I'm just going to remove that for now. Again, I don't know why this connection keeps dropping. It's a bit silly. Oh, I've got someone else watching, who knows. Which one here? Yeah, cool. Alright, so now that we've got that in there, we'll actually hit play and we'll have a look at what's going on now. I'm just going to extend this out a little bit so it makes it a little bit easier for you to see. Moving around, so we can jump up, we can do all the things that we did before. Punch, 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 kick, cool. As you can see again, the bottom left hand corner, if I don't think I can push that way now, it's not going. We've got the 3 little boxes there, now that's part of the inventory setup that we've just chucked on there. Now for me, I think it's the back button. The thing, so as you can see, it's also set up for the controller and also for keyboard and mouse controls. I use the controller, it's so much easier. I actually really got to hand it to the Invector guys. The template, the way that it just so seamlessly works with controllers is just ridiculously good. Haven't had any other assets that sort of tie into a controller quite so well. Anyway, enough brown nosing for that. So we've got items and equipment. Or equipments. Now what this does, so this gives you the different options. So you've got your sword, your shield and your potions. Now as that correlates on the screen, you've got here, so you can see it automatically switches to the mouse and keyboard. Your sword will end up here, your shield will end up here to show that it's the left hand and that's the right hand, and then the potions will end up on the bottom, and they actually correlate to the D-pad as well. So all the directional arrows. So if I wanted to change what they were, I just press the right D-pad or right arrow, and that will change the sword field to this second sword here, and then back to the first when you change it again. But anyway, so I'm going to move that off. Oh, get that mouse out of there. I'm going to set up the potions again, so that's going to be in a quick slot, and as you can see, it's already popped down into the bottom there. Now we want to change the sword, we're going to put the axe in there, and that's done. And as you can see, that the axe has popped in now. Okay, so it's popped into the default location, but that default location has not been set up to the hand properly. So that's alright, that's something we can look at. I'm not going to test the potion just yet, because what I'm going to do now is we're going to pause the thing. Oh, no, I want to come back here, thanks. Oh, I'm going to just change it so we've got maybe that. I don't have the zoom set on for the camera. We'll look at the camera a little bit later. So we've got that. Now we need to adjust this. Where's that man? Here we go. So we click on this, we've got an F, so we just get on a better angle of it. Yeah, you can see where it is. Alright, so we need to set this up so that it's actually going to sit in the hand properly. And anything else, because as you can see, the default spawn point is pretty much sitting in the middle of the wrist there, but we don't want that. So the default equipment point is we've got set up here. What's going on there? The pivot. There we go. That's what. Oh, sorry, I had it set to center, so it was going a little bit funny. Global's fine. Local is also what we want. So we want it set to pivot and local. That'll get us the most accurate positioning of where that actual thing sits. Now we can see that we don't want it here, because that's sitting in the middle of the wrist. So what we want to do now is we want to change it. Make sure that you've got default equip point selected and not the axe clone or the components, any of that sort of stuff, because you'll just be moving the actual axe clone itself and it won't do you any good. So we want the default equip point. We want to move that down here. As you can see, we're moving it through the hand, getting it to a spot which is, we can move around because we're paused at the moment. What this has done is it's actually paused it in between, but if we line it up to the correct position in the hand now, when it plays the other animations, it will stay in that correct position compared to the rest of the animations. So it's not going to, if we get it right here, it'll be right everywhere else. So we want to sort of, again, keep moving that down in here. So we've got it pretty much where it needs to be positioned, but the problem is that you can see it's coming through the bottom of the hand here, and it doesn't really match up to where his hand's pointing, so we need to rotate that. And we'll do that. Oops, that's not what I wanted, not the axis I wanted. Axis. We want the green, so we can rotate it this way a little bit. And of course, now that we've rotated it this way, it's also changed where it's coming out here, so we need to go back to moving and adjust it. So as you can see, that's pretty good for where it is. It is coming up at an angle. It's a funky look. It's coming out like that. It's not eating into the hand too much, and it's not coming out too far on the other side of the hand. Yeah, that's pretty good where it is there. I actually quite like that. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to copy that component, because we're in the runtime, it's not going to, as soon as we hit stop, it's going to return that to the default settings of what it was before. So we need to copy out those details by just going copy component. Alright? And we unpause it, and you can see, yeah, he's carrying it, it's where it is. Now if we started attacking, woo, and it's pretty much where it needs to be during all the attacks. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, we're going to hit stop on that, and now that we've got this, you see the values have all changed again to the position being 0. Now we don't want the 0 point, because as we saw, it zooms back out, as we saw before, the 0 point's on the wrist. We don't want that. So we come back here, we've already copied the component, but instead of pasting the component as new, because you can't do that, it's already there, we want to paste the component values. So we click paste component values, and now you can see the pivot points move down to here. And then of course if we play again, yeah, punch, punch, kick, very good. We go to equipment, we chuck on the axe, and it's back in where it needs to be, and it's sitting perfectly almost. Done. Now, I'm wondering whether I can try if I go third person controller and put max health. Yeah, I can't actually set my current health. Oh, no, current health. No, I can't set it. Bugger. So what I want to do is make sure that the potions were actually working. And that's not going to happen like that. Ooh, that's actually another thing that I remember. So when you take a potion, you don't know that you've taken it other than the fact that your health goes up. But I have seen, I think in the demo one especially, the player character in there, when you take it, it does the and gives you like a little particle effect. So to do that, we again need to go through and affect the item manager events. So on use item, if we go click on that, and then the item needs to be the potion, I think. Is that, am I doing that right? Is it the potion or is it the third person controller? You know what, I'm actually going to leave that for now because I can't remember the exact thing that you're supposed to do for it. If we go back to events, we're going to get rid of that. What I did with my one, I think what I actually did is I put the particle effect on the spine where I wanted it to occur from, so because it was like a big flurry of particles coming out of the body to show that you've done this, and then like a little circle around the feet to make it look like a magic effect. In order to trigger that, whenever it was using the potion item, it would affect. So on apply, oh actually no, the other's not in events, in here. So I would do that, yeah, runtime that, and then play the particle effect. I don't have a particle effect to show, or is there a particle effect? Hang on. Oh, it doesn't want to show me, does it? Let's have a quick look. Prefabs, items, potion, three models, animations, particles. That's footstep. Particles, damage. Yeah, I'd have to have a look through there. Alright, so anyway, the way that I would do that is by coming through here. So not only would it trigger this thing to give me extra points, but I would have it trigger the particle that I have on here, and the function would be to play the thing. I think it's game object or particle manager. I think it only pops up when you actually, yeah, when it's a particle effect, it will pop up with one of these would be particle manager, whatever, and then it would be play, and it would play that effect for whatever the effect is that you've got set up, and then would stop, and then of course every time you use it, it will play that effect again. So you'd actually have that sitting somewhere on your player character, and it would affect when you needed it. Anyway, so in order to actually really test this out and see that it works properly, we need to be able to take damage. So we're going to need an enemy for that. So that's a whole nother kettle of fish and another bloody hour of discussing. Just checking on something at the moment. Cool. Alright, so let us then have a look at setting up an opponent, someone that we can fight and take damage from. Now that we've got all that. So again, we go up to Invector and we want to go to the melee combat and we want to create an NPC this time. So we go create an NPC, I'm just going to bring this down to the center. So we've got enemy AI, your options are enemy AI or companion AI. I think you can actually make another option if you've got I don't know, some other thing, but you can pretty much from these two here create any kind of NPC you want out of that. It's basically just saying like, are they going to be an enemy or are they going to be a friendly unit? The only difference between them is pretty much who they tag and what kind of layer they are set on, or what layer or tags they're set for. You can pretty much work with, you can actually do a friendly one with just the same thing, but the AI that they use for following is a little bit different, I think. But anyway, we want to make an enemy, so we're going to leave it as that. Now the model we want to use, again, we're going to have to change with, you know what, let's actually set up one of the, no, we won't. I'll leave that for later because I'll need to show you how to put that through. Looking. There's a bunch more of these things. These little robots. We'll go with the green. The green guy's got the fancy looking face. Ooh, pretty. Not only is he shiny, but he's got an evil looking skull, so he's a bad guy. So these NPCs are a lot easier to set up than a character through this wizard here, because you don't have to choose the camera or anything like that. It is just select the right controller, and we want the MC, and then we're done. So we go create. Cool. Now that's zeroed it out, so it's actually with our character as well. So we'll move our character off, and we'll leave this guy here. This is our enemy. So as you can see, his collider's a bit different. He's actually just got the cylinder collider, because there's no real... actually, they do jump, but it's not really needed. It doesn't move the same way as a player. But all the collider stuff, as it is perfectly fine. Now, if we want to set it up the same as the player with a rigid body, we just do the same process again. So we go through Invector, the basic locomotion. We set up the ragdoll first. Now, so that is we're using the built-in one. So all these things are pretty much perfect as they are. Let's go create. Now let's set up the ragdoll for him. Other than that, we want to add in the footstep, and we need to change that to default. So we click on here, default. So if it's quick for people, it's just making it a lot easier than coming through. I'll go through the controller stuff a little bit later. And now we get into, it was just those two from there, wasn't it? Yep. And the combat. Now we go here, all we need is the melee manager. These two here, the weapon holder and the item manager, are only for the player, because they actually come through your screen space and things like that, so that you can't have an inventory for the NPCs. You can have them have items that they drop, but there's no way to like, you can't just open a backpack on them, anything like that. They actually have items automatically stored on them, but depending on what you actually drop on them. So anyway, we want the melee manager so that it can actually fight. We'll look at that in just a sec. So we're going to go here through the controller script now. We'll have a quick look. So yeah, AI controller. So it's not the third-person controller; it's the AI controller. So that's the difference between the NPC and the player controller. Still pretty much the same stuff. Now, death by animation, we want to put that actually as completely a ragdoll, because yeah, it looks funny when they're completely a ragdoll. Ground layer again is the default, because we've got that set to our terrain set to default. We need to back a NavMesh before we actually allow them, because they won't work without a NavMesh. The patrol speed, chase speed, and strafe speed. Now, these are the different speeds that it will do depending on what state it's in. So it's got here, you've got several states. You've got idle, patrol subpoints, patrol waypoints, and chase. It will switch between those depending on what it's doing. If you've got waypoints set up, it will patrol through the waypoints, and it will idle there depending on how long you've told it to idle at that particular waypoint. If it comes across a target, it will chase that target until it loses that target, and then it will go back to wandering the waypoints or whatever you've got set up for it. So yeah, you can leave that pretty much now. Now, as for what it can target, currently it's got set up because it's an AI and it's an enemy AI. It's automatically set up for targeting the player. If you end up putting in companion NPCs, or you want the NPC to target other enemies as well, you'd put that into 2 or 3, and you'd also type in companion AI and enemy, or enemy AI, I think it is, but we'll go over that later. And that allows it to attack and target the other characters. It doesn't mean that when you put it there, it's going to see that there's another enemy next to it and decide to just attack it, willy-nilly. But if you're in the middle of combat, and you can see sometimes when there's a group, sometimes one of them will throw a punch or will swing a sword, and it will hit other enemy combatants. Other enemy AI. And what happens is if it gets hit by another enemy and has taken more damage from the other enemy, the AI will automatically target that thing. So I've actually done it several times where I've run into the centre of a group of enemy and let them start attacking me, and they hit each other and then start fighting each other, and I can run off. So it's actually a cool way of playing with the AI anyway. Whether it's meant to do that or not, I don't know, but it's pretty cool. Draw agent path and display gizmos, that's just for when you're sort of doing your debugging stuff, you can see where it's going. Field of view, that sets obviously where it's looking, so you can sneak up behind enemy unless you've got it set to the 180, and then of course it can see behind it. Max detect distance, so within 5 it can find you. Minimum detect, you have to be at least 2 away for it to find you properly. And distance till it's lost the target, so it will keep chasing you until you get further than 20, I think it's 20 metres away, or depending on, it's pretty much, I think Unity does it in metres as the range for that, so 1 equals 1 metre. And then chase stop distance, it'll take a metre to stop before it stops chasing you. The strafing, it can strafe sideways and it can strafe backwards. The distance, strafe swipe. I don't really know what swipe is, so I don't know whether it's a typo or something else, but as it's got with the pop-up here, minimum time to change the strafe direction. So it needs 2 seconds or whatever, or 2 milliseconds, whatever, before it changes the direction that it's strafing in. And you can just fiddle with those. They all sort of come into play when you're really adjusting the way your enemy AI moves around and the way it engages in combat. And that's just sort of tweaking depending on that could depend on how your game's set up, how you want the combat to flow, the size of the enemy, the way that it's supposed to attack. You can change all that. Combat, passive to damage. Oh yeah, cool. Alright, so this is actually good for setting up any kind of NPC. If you want ones that aren't supposed to attack back, like say you've got villagers or something like that, and you're just trying to make a game where they're not just going to start you because you accidentally hit them or anything like that. You can set it to be passive, so if you hurt it, it's not automatically going to target you. And you do this with companion AIs. Like say if you don't want the companions to target you after you've hit them, you set this passive to damage, and then that way they're not going to get aggressive towards you if you accidentally hit them. Aggressive at first sight. So if it sees you, it will target you and it will chase you as soon as it sees you. But if you have this unticked, I don't think it chases you until you hit it, and then it will chase you. An attack rotation speed, again, if you're moving around, it will move around, like turn around as it's attacking you, that sort of stuff. First attack delay, 0, so it will attack you as soon as it gets close enough. The minimum time that it takes to attack is 4, so it's only going to attack like once every 4 cycles or seconds, whatever that is, and then the maximum time. So somewhere between 4 and 6 is when it will attack you. It'll choose a random time between those 2 numbers. And then the max attack count, so it'll only attack you 3 times in a combo sequence. So it won't do like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It'll do 1, 2, 3, and then stop for another 4 to 6 seconds. And random attack. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So it will do either 1 or 2 attacks and then stop, or it'll do 1 attack, or it'll do all 3 attacks and stop. Chance to roll, chance to block and strafe, and then chance to block attack. And that's all about how it fights in combat. Is it going to roll out of the way every time you hit it, or is it only going to do it once every now and then? Is it going to block you every now and then? Is it going to block an attack entirely just by standing there? Raise shield, lower shield, again that's the same thing of the time and the random chance. Waypoints, so distance to change waypoint, all that sort of stuff. This is again when you actually put in waypoints in the system. We'll go through that shortly after we've set up the potions and everything else. That'll be the next step, because that's actually a big one. There's a really good waypoint system in this. I suppose you could say it's fairly basic. If you got like another AI pack, they've obviously got like a lot more detailed waypoints. But this one itself, it's built in and it's actually really good. I've used it on a lot of different things. And if you're setting up, say, like a little city scene and you want things to happen, it works fine. It'll do everything you need it to do. It's just if you're, if you want to go for things where you've got like herd mentality, spawners and leaders and all that sort of stuff, then you're looking at your Emerald AI or your ice creature control, those sort of assets. And most of them actually tie in to Invector, not officially. I don't think they do any official tie-ins yet. But they work pretty well together. There's not a super amount of conflicts that I've come across. I've got the ice one. I don't think I've tried using it with 2.x. Invector, but I did use it ages ago with one of the other ones. I didn't really fully understand it. I just sort of played around with it for a bit, and I managed to get it working. There was no conflicts, which was good. But there's just certain things of like, trying to get an enemy to spawn and stuff like that. But again, I haven't tried it with the version 2, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, patrolling stop distance, path area. Yeah, when you set up a waypoint area, that'll become more apparent, and then excuse me, random waypoints. That allows you to tick so that it won't just go through a set path from waypoint 1, 2, 3. You can set up the waypoints so that they're randomised. So yeah, you can get it to just wander in various positions, which is really cool. Again, I'll showcase that later because I'm pretty impressed with the waypoint system in this. Iterations. I don't know. Haven't come across them before. I mean, obviously I have because I've used it plenty of times, but I don't know what they do. I would have to look that up. Anyway, that's the AI script. Let's come down now to, yeah, we've got the ragdoll thing set up again the same as it always is. I don't play around with any of that stuff. Again, I'll leave the remove physics after die. I'd leave that unticked because I want the physics to be there after the death. Footstep from texture, we set that up the same way as the player. Now, the melee manager. Default info, again, same as the player, that's all fine. Events, on damage hit, on recoil hit, you can do certain things like sounds and other effects. Yeah, I think that's where you chuck in the sound, because the sound on the other ones are on the weapons when they hit. Extra body member, so we'll set this one up later on by setting up, the head attack, because I don't have an animation for a head attack at the moment, so it's fairly useless for me. But I can get one later on, and I'll go through how to set that up, because that is one that's been asked a couple of times in the forums, and they have explained it in the forums. I don't know if there's been a tutorial video on how to do it, but there's been a basic explanation, so I can actually do that. It's fairly straightforward, but yeah, again, you need the animation, and you need to rig it up so it works. Body members, who you can hit again, so this one is going to have to change. So we've got hit damage tags, we've got that set to enemy. So right now I can't actually damage the player, I can only damage other enemies, and we don't want that yet because there's no other enemies. And we also want it to be able to hurt the player so we can test out the potion. So we're going to change this now to player. And yeah, use recoil, it can recoil, that's fine. We've only got those 2 blocks, so it's really going to hurt it. Default is that, the recoil range, yeah, 90, no worries. Hit properties, remove that. Weapons, again, we're just using fists at the moment. Yeah, we'll leave it as the fists because I'm going to want to be able to change that other thing. Now, you know what, we're actually going to rotate this guy. So let's, yep, I've got the thing. Just turn him around. He's going to face that way now. So that way when we spawn in, he's not going to run up behind us and start attacking me before I get to chucking all my equipment and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Now NavMesh. So, always been the way with the template is that to run any kind of AI or enemies on it, you need to have the NavMesh baked. The NavMesh just basically, because it is a NavMesh agent, as you can see here, it needs that to figure out where it can and can't walk. So we've got a simple scene, it's only going to take a few seconds to bake it. I leave this all as it is. It's all pretty much how it's supposed to be. The jump distance stuff, actually quite interesting because I have before seen it, and they do jump off ledges and stuff like that, and it's really cool because they can chase down, because sometimes your stairs won't work too well if you've got stepped stairs. I've noticed that the NavMesh on it doesn't really bake too well in certain instances. But yeah, they can jump off the ledge next to the stair, which was surprised me, and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't realise. Anyway, save the scene. Oh, okay, yep, so we haven't saved the scene yet. Tutorial scene 1. So we're just going to call it that. It's in my assets folder. There we go, and it's baking it, and as you can see now, it's fine, but I think, has it, how have I got this set to inspector? Oh, static. Should change these to static. Alright, so we've got that. I'm just going to go back and I'm going to bake that again. so that way it doesn't cut through the block. There we go. So as you can see now, what was happening before is that the NavMesh was set for the terrain, so the entire terrain was walkable. But the problem is that means it's going to actually walk through here. Now, even though there's physics on, they can still walk through the blocks because the NavMesh says they can, so they do. And I've noticed that, and a few times I've done a demo, and I'm like, why the hell are they walking through it? It's because the NavMesh says they can. So you've got to make sure that any of your objects that are supposed to stop people walking through are set to static, and basically set up in the nav menu to block it. And there's obviously a massive difference between here and here, so this character's only, the NPC is only going to be able to move up to here. Not a super problem, but say if you're standing on the box, it might not have the distance to hit you properly, and it should be able to move there closer. But what we do for that is the agent radius. So we've just set in a basic agent radius of 0.5, which means that any of the edges between something you can't walk at will have a distance of 0.5 away from it that's walkable. So we can actually drop that down to 0.25, and we'll bake that again, and you'll see that this will change and be a lot closer and probably work out for the better. So probably, we'll see. There we go, cool. So now there's actually a gap that they can walk in between there, because it should have been able to walk between there. It's not a super thing. If it clips through the thing, nobody really cares. We're not doing a super huge thing. Alright, cool. So now that we've got that, we are actually ready to play and ready to test out all the stuff we need to test out. So I'm just going to, again, bring this window up a bit more. I'm going to put my headphones on because there's going to be a little bit of sound. And I'm sorry if someone's actually been talking on the thing. No, it's just me sitting by myself in the Discord. Cool. It was actually really short notice that I brought this up, so I'm not surprised that nobody's watching yet, but you'll be all watching from home on your YouTube. I mean, you'll be watching at home. It doesn't matter. It's midnight. What are you going to do? Where is it? Christ, nearly midnight. It's been 2 hours now. Alright. So here we go. So as you can see, we've got our guy over there. He's just wandering around. What does the console say? So no errors, so everything's working fine. Now what we're going to do, switch back to that. We're going to hit pause. We'll go into our equipment, equip our axe, and we're going to equip the potion. So we're going to come up here and we're going to start hassling this guy. Oh, he's detected me. Okay. He's blocking now. Why don't you hit me? Why don't you hit me? Try hitting me. I've actually taken damage. Not yet. There we go. See, a little bit of damage. I'll let him get a couple more hits in so we can actually see a bit of a difference. Oh, that's too much. I'm angry now. Uh-oh. I do have it set up so I can hit the enemy, don't I? Uh-oh, what's going on? There we go. And of course you can see the ragdoll, he falls around and even is reacting to my leg. So we can move him around now. I was actually hitting him, I didn't have the sound on properly so I couldn't hear it. But we're all running around, we can hear him now. Whee! Oh, I love doing this, it's fun. I'm moving him on. Let's see if we can get him under here. See what it looks like. Bonk. Bonk bonk. Alright, so now we want to see whether the potions are going to affect us. No. Oh, because I didn't use it. Wait, hang on. What is the use item left trigger? There we go. And it works. So as you can see, the health bar is moving up by when we press the left trigger. When we press the left 1 button, we've got the blocking. As you can see, it sort of clips through the arm there. That's sort of a problem with where it's listed as we might want to rotate it a little bit to get it out of there, but then it might look a little funky of where it's lined up on the arm. It's to do with having a really big axe model, things like that. But as you can see, the potions work. Bing. That counts down because we're using up our potions. Use it again, and now we're pretty much on full health. Alright, so now we have a totally working system. It's taken me a long time, but mainly because I've been talking my bum off to you guys, trying to explain every single little piece of going in and over-explaining it. But yeah, as you can see, it's quite easy to just chuck stuff in and get everything working. It's just a couple of things you need to look out for when you're starting from scratch like that. the potion bit. I didn't know that for a long time, and I wasn't sure why things were working until someone else I was talking to put it in there and basically explained it to me that you need to have that set up, because I never noticed it when I was looking at the demo player. Ooh, there we go, camera. So we fell forward. So that's where you'd have the culling stuff, like you'd want it so you could see through and not just accidentally see through because of the way the camera actually cuts. We should look at the camera though, actually I haven't looked at that yet. I haven't explained how that works. So we'll look at the camera now. You can see the third person camera script, or at least you could see it if I wasn't sitting in front of it. So the target is the third person controller transform, sorry. So that's actually this item. One cool trick, I only learnt this just the start of this week, is that you can lock this screen so that every time you click on something else, it's still there, which is so handy for when I'm going through the project folders and trying to drop bits and pieces into the different slots. So anyway, didn't know that till now. So your target's the third person controller transform. Now you've got the mouse sensitivity. That's, I think it should work with the control stick as well. It's basically just your X and Y axis and how sensitive it is to the movements versus how far the movement it receives is. So you drop down the sensitivity and you have to move the mouse a lot further in order to move the camera a lot further. 3 is pretty good. As it is now, it's actually pretty good. Smooth between state, smooth camera rotation. So what it does is when you do go to middle, when the target transform moves, it has to update that movement to the camera, which means that it's running that every X amount of time. So it's not just, it's not an analog system where, like in a real world, where it will basically just be tied onto a string and you can drag it along and it knows where to look. It's getting those updates. So the smoothing factor is basically every time it gets those updates, instead of actually just going, you're here, and then warping to you're here, then warping to you're there, which would be stilted, it does the smoothing effect, so it basically moves it between the two at a certain rate, so it looks like it's a nice smooth movement, and that's how you get the smoothing between the states, and smoothing between the camera rotation. Now, between the state basically counts for when you either when you're zooming or when you're changing the camera state from being so the third person to the third person between behind the shoulders for when you're crouching and all that sort of stuff, or when you're locked on and it changes that. And then the rotations for when you're actually moving it around rotating it around the character or the target. Scroll speed, again, I think that's with the zooming. Culling layer. Now, this is the thing. So when it goes behind an object, what layer will be culled? Yeah. So if the camera is going to go behind an object and not see the player, it needs to figure out. Basically the camera will jump to in front of that object and become closer to the player. And as you saw before, we were basically cut right in behind the player model, and there was occlusion or culling basically of the thing. We could see the inside of the model and parts that we weren't really supposed to see. That's just the thing because of the way the camera, so it doesn't collide with other objects in the game, and keeps you that clear view on your player. That's set to default, so any items that are default, it will realise they're there and try and get in front of them. If you set that on nothing, then it would basically sit behind that block there and you wouldn't be able to see your player. You might want that in certain games, and then in certain reasons why you wouldn't want that, because it would kill the line of sight to your player and you wouldn't be able to see if you're getting attacked, that sort of stuff. I put that on sometimes because I've got another program or another script that allows me to actually change the material on that object to make it translucent, so you can see through the object to your player, which is fantastic because that's the way a lot of games basically do it. So you can see if you're running along the wall, if you've got the isometric view, things like that. And it also just makes it better because when as you saw before, when you jump in front, it can really alter what you can actually see in your field of vision, or field of view, should I say. And how far around your character is. So it ruins your situational awareness. But by doing the translucent method, it gives you that, again, it saves your vision and your situational awareness and keeps it the same all the way through. I'll do that one another day. I can show you system I use. I haven't used it in a little while because I haven't been playing with stuff that I needed it just yet. But I can show you what that asset does in another time. Anyway, moving on, because I keep talking too much. So this is the camera state. This is the one that we picked earlier when we were creating the player. And as you can see, we've got the third-person camera state. You can create your own camera states. You can delete it. I wouldn't suggest that you delete them. And you can come along here and change a bunch of the values. So the state is the default. So when you got in here, there's a couple of different states. That you want to do, and you can add more in there. So the default state is for just when you're running around. Now obviously the crouch is for when you're crouched down. If you saw before, the camera zoomed in to a little bit closer so it was more of like an over the shoulder look, but not super close. Strafing I didn't do because I haven't locked onto anything yet, but basically yeah, the strafing just is for, so that's the over shoulder view when you lock on, so it will keep behind your character's shoulders and your character will move left and right as the control scheme changes from the free roaming to the I'm looking in this direction and moving left and right, forward and back, rather than turning around. And that locks the camera behind it as well. So that's how that works. Pendulum. This is put in because in the demo scene you've got the thing where there's the giant bauble things that will knock you about when you run into them, and that's like an area effect issue. But what that does is that alters your camera as well, because basically your player model is going flying. So if you were if the camera was still following it and chasing it, then the camera would go all crazy and you wouldn't really be able to see what's going on. So they've set it up so that there's an alternate camera thing where it will look at your character as it's flying along, but not tail it super much until it gets back up and then changes back to the default setting. So that's how that works, and that's in there. But you can create your own camera states with the different variables and things like that. So the camera mode for this one, free directional. Again, that's the one, so that allows me to move around the player in all the different angles and stuff like that, and just a rotating camera around. Fixed angle, that's the one where I don't actually get to rotate around the player, and that's for when you've got the over the shoulders camera and it's stuck behind the character. You don't want to be able to move left or right or up or down because it's trying to focus on the target just in front of the camera. Fixed point, that was the one that I was talking about earlier with the V mansion. That's the one where it's got the camera won't actually move. It will rotate to aim at a target, which will be the player, and will follow them until they get out of the range, and then it will switch to another camera via a script when they move into another room. So that's the one where it doesn't actually move. So yeah, the state name is just you name what state it is, which is at the moment we're using the default. So if you were to make a new camera state, you would change all that. You'd change that name and you'd change the different inputs and save it. And that's fine. So forward. Now what that's saying is where it actually sits in relation to the player. So as you can see, if we started this up now, when it jumps in, so as you can see, the player is sitting a distance away, which is actually 1 meter in front of where the camera is located. If we change that value to 0, you can see that it's moved it around in a really weird way, and we don't want to have that. Whoa. So yeah, you can see it's pretty much completely altered where my rotate and where my pivot is for the character, and that's not cool. So let's put that back to 0. Sorry, -1. Leave that where it is. Don't do it. Now the right is set to 0.1. Now what that's doing is, because as you can see, it's not directly in the center of the screen, and you don't want it to be, because that sort of covers where you are, especially when you're doing the third-person shooter style. You need to be able to see what the character's looking at and what's in front of it. Otherwise you're blocking everything in front of it and it just doesn't look right. And for third-person combat, you also want that offset. So this is how you can do the offset. You can actually set it so it's on the other side, or you can set it so it's really way far away. None of them really work that well. It really depends on what your game really is and how you're running it. If you're doing fixed angle and stuff like that, and you're doing like an infinite runner sort of system, and you were only going in that direction, this might be alright. But for the majority of games, it's not going to work. Default values are good. -1 and 0.1. That's where you want it to sit. Distance. So this is obviously how far away from the player your camera is, so you can set it into really small, right up behind, and as you can see that it's got there, it's sort of aiming right at the centre of the back. You set it back up now, it was on 3 was the default. You can also set in a zoom, so you can click on use zoom. Now you can set the max distance away and the minimum distance to it, so you want to set that to 1, the max distance 8, so when we click on here, we use the mouse scroll wheel, and we can zoom in and out of the player. And as we rotate around, ooh, there he is. Yeah, so for now we're going to take that off anyway, we're going to go back to 3. Ooh. Change that back again. So yeah, we'll leave that off. Now the height, that adjusts how high, ooh, Jesus, how high from the target point, which is pretty much the centre of the character, because that's the centre of the transform. Yeah, so yeah, how high it sits up. Oh, I forgot what the default value for that was. Bugger. I should have paid attention to that. So anyway, yeah, so you've got that thing. Now the smooth follow again, and the culling height. Culling height's a new one, I don't remember seeing that normally. I'm assuming that value is... I'll turn that off, see if it's got a tooltip. I don't know if it does. I'm assuming that means the height that the object is off the ground, or where the highest point of that object, where it hits, before the camera actually decides that it's going to block the view. Because your player is a certain amount of size, not everything in between you and the camera is actually going to block it, so the camera doesn't have to jump in front of something that's only blocking like the foot of your character. Did I say the camera? Yeah, I think I might have minced my words there. But as I was saying, so when we stand in front of this block, the top half of my character is still visible. So the camera doesn't actually have to move in front of this block, because it can still see me enough that it doesn't care that there's a block in the way. But if I'm standing behind this one here and the camera's over this side here, as the camera's looking across, it will only be able to see my head, and that goes, no, that's not right, we need to see more than the head, so it jumps in front of that, and that's adjustable by this here, which is the culling height, I believe. Not 100% sure on that, because I haven't actually come across it before, but from what I can tell, that's what it's getting at, is what height do you actually want it to be able to see the character from, and then it'll jump across there. So that's pretty cool. Now the limit angle X, limit angle Y. So that's when we come back to here. Now the X angle is, whoops, I'm pressing the wrong one. X is the horizontal, so how far around the character I can rotate. It's currently set to 360, because I can do a full 360 around the character, so I can see it from the front, I can see it from any angle around the horizontal. But when you've got the rotational thing, you don't want it to go below the ground, right? So you've got this angle here, which is 40, so the lowest I can go down is 40 degrees, or negative 40, so basically I can look 40 degrees up, or is it 50 degrees up, because it's the negative for the inverse, whatever. Anyway, that's the range, so negative 40 to 80 is the range that you want to be able to look at from the 0 point, which would be 0, so completely horizontal to the character, and then on the vertical axis, 40 degrees down, or 80 degrees up, which would basically be 80 plus 40, so 120 degrees on the other side, so like basically a 120 degree arc. So I won't be able to get completely atop the character, because I'd need 90 degrees for that, and I won't be able to get more than 40 degrees down from that centre level. So that's just, you can limit it there. So depending on what kind of game you're making, what kind of camera work you want done, you'd adjust these scales. So if you don't want to be able to have the player be able to turn around and look completely behind the character, you'd only want them to come up to the side or something like that, you would adjust the X angle, and then if you didn't want it to look straight down, you would adjust that AE down to something smaller, and if you really didn't want it getting anywhere near the ground, or looking too high up into the sky, you would again limit that as well. We'll turn that off. So that's the camera. It's fairly simple, fairly straightforward. It works wonders though. It's actually really good with the clipping and the culling. The inbuilt stuff's great. As I said though, it does depend on a few things, and I have troubles with it every now and then with the culling because it jumps in front of objects, and when I've got really detailed levels, it will jump in front of them. You can change that, so you can adjust the layers so that it won't, but then you get problems of it will be stuck in an object. Well, not stuck that it can't move again, but stuck in the sense that it will see through the geometry and you'll get the weird effects, and it doesn't look any good. Anyway, that's... Excuse me, that's that. I'm going to take a quick 2-second break because I need to check my emails apparently. And I do hope, seeing as I've been here for the past hour or two, that my audio is going alright. I do have a fan on. It's actually warm here because it's bedtime. I've got my son asleep. I can't chuck the aircon on. So it is a little bit warm. I've got the fan on, so it might be a bit of background noise, and I don't know whether the audio is capturing from the right device. It seems to get me every now and then. And this stupid dropping out, I really do apologise if it's dropped out on any crucial points. I've tried to sort of stick on things. I honestly don't know why it's doing it. It shouldn't be doing it. It's never done it for anything other stuff that I've streamed. Alright, nothing important. Yeah, it looks like it keeps jumping. That's very unfortunate. But at least my audio's clear, so that might help. So, alright, let's have a look. Where can we go from here? Well, I'm going to unlock that because I need to see stuff. I guess we'll look at waypoints. So now what we will do, again, I sort of started looking at the waypoints just recently, and I was quite impressed with them. I had a really cool thing set up with just AI characters and no player at all, and you just switch between cameras and watch the AI go to work. It was quite funny. Alright, so waypoints. What we can do is this cube here, we can actually add a component to this, because this is going to be a center point for my waypoint network. Might not be the best way of doing it, although, yeah, we'll go here, we'll go to the Invector menu, melee combat, new waypoint area. Now normally you just put in an empty game object. I don't think there's any problem with putting it on a physical object that's there, especially because this object doesn't do anything else. So we're just going to go new waypoint area. Oh, that's alright, that's going to make a generic object anyway. Woo. Cool. Alright, so show hotkeys is something we want to look at first, because you want to make sure that you're doing it right. Shift and left mouse click is to create a new waypoint. Control and left mouse is to create a new patrol point to selected waypoint. Huh. Okay. I haven't done patrol points yet, that's pretty interesting. Set click point position to waypoint selected. So click point position. I don't know what that is. Click point position to patrol point selected. Oh, I guess I don't know everything about waypoints as I thought of. Enter edit mode. Alright, so start by holding shift and left click on any surface with a collider. So we want to click here. Oh, actually this is out of NavMesh. Shouldn't be out of the NavMesh. It's... oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I see what I've done. Okay. Be very careful. As you can see what I've done, like, how is it floating in the middle of the air? You know why? It's because it's actually hit on the menu screen there, so it's popped it in a funny way. So you got to be careful that you're not that you don't have this in your way, and you are clicking on the ground. What we do is we'll actually turn that off. So hopefully, oh no, we want waypoint area. Okay, this is not a glitch, although it kind of is glitchy. It might be purposeful, but when you're in edit mode on the waypoint area, if you click on anywhere else in the hierarchy here, it's locked. it's just automatically locked to the waypoint thing in edit mode. It doesn't allow you to exit, and I've just realised that now because that's locked, which is why it doesn't change to everything. That's why I thought, originally I thought it was a glitch, and I'm like, why isn't it letting me click on anything else? And now that I know that lock thing's there, I know that that's what it's doing. So exit edit mode, and it unlocks up the top here. So it's not a glitch. Not a glitch. My bad. Unless it's not meant to do that, and for some reason it's doing that. But I assume there's probably reason behind it, I just don't know. Anyway, alright. So, let's try that again. Yeah, UI, I'm actually going to hide that so that I don't collide with it when I do it. Enter edit mode, I'm going to show hotkeys. So shift left mouse click. So we want the first waypoint to be over here. Cool. Is it valid? Yes it is, obviously. Random patrol point. Oh, right, so that's what it's doing. So you can click random patrol point, or you can, if we go create new, so control and left mouse click. So we go control. Yeah. So there's 4 patrol points. So basically once it gets to this point here, it will wander around these points here in a patrol pattern. So it'll patrol between these points. So we'll go time to stay. We're actually going to, yeah. But if you click random patrol point, instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, it will go 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, whatever, however long it's supposed to go through them all. And you can set that up in here, how long it takes to go through them all. So area radius as well, we want to change that to encompass all of those, because I like having the area radius a little bit easier, because instead of actually, when you don't have patrol points, on the waypoint thing, the area radius sets where it can move to basically say, yep, I'm at that waypoint, and it'll pretty much pick a random point in that radius there to be, yep, we're in there, this is how many people we got in there. So yeah, on that, time to stay is set to 0, so we'll basically go there and then go, no, I need to leave here now, let's go to the next one. So we want to set that to, say, maybe 5. So it'll stay there for, like, you know, a fair bit of time. Max visitors, we've only got 1 enemy at the moment, so we only really need to be 1. You set this up for when you've got multiple NPCs that are moving around an area, but you don't want to overcrowd a particular location. You can limit the amount of NPCs that will go to that waypoint at the one instance, so you won't have more than 1 visitor at this spot, or you can set it to 3. You won't have more than 3 NPCs visit that spot at the same time. So one can leave and then another one can come in and visit it, but yeah, you won't have that. That's just to avoid crowding. So we'll set that to 1 because we've only got 1 at the moment. Again, this slider bar, you can see that it's adjusting the gizmo on the screen there. You set that up to encompass the area that waypoint covers, and then you can go through to the patrol points and do similar things. So we've got patrol point 1, again time to stay 0, so we want to set that to maybe 1, max visitors 1, the area radius, so it will go anywhere within that circle just in there, hopefully I'm not dropping down. Now we go to waypoint 2, we want to set that to 1 as well. The area radius, we can shrink that down, so oh, no, we can't, it's already set to 1, that's the smallest it can be. So it'll visit anywhere within that square after visiting somewhere else. And then 3, again, we'll change that to 1. We'll set the area radius to pretty big. And then 4, we'll set that to 1. So these are like sub-waypoints within the waypoint itself. So instead of just walking to one area and standing still there for ages and then walking off to another area, this can stand here for a while and then move around, you know, small spaces within that waypoint before heading off to another waypoint, so another section. So it's a way you can make it look a little bit more lively in an area rather than just standing there. Alright, so we've got that. So let's go back to here. Now we want to create a new place. Click point position to a waypoint selected. Position to a patrol point selected. So I go control right click. Oh, okay, so I can actually adjust that by right click. Ah, that's pretty groovy. Yeah, we'll set it up like that. Alright, so that's what that means. Okay, so the right mouse click to set click thing. So if I'm clicked on a waypoint, which I am now, if I go shift right mouse click, I can move that around. So that moves that entire waypoint to somewhere else in case I put it in the wrong spot, whatever. Instead of having to make a new one and delete this one, I can just move it around. And then same for control and right click, I can move that patrol point to somewhere else. Pretty cool. Anyway, we want to create a new waypoint, so we're going to shift left mouse click over here. So now we've got a new waypoint. We want to adjust that area radius again, max visitors 1, time to stay, this one we're only going to put down to 3, random patrol point, and we're going to, control left mouse click, control. So again, time to stay, we're just going to set that to 1 for each of them. 1. Now we're going to shift left click for another patrol point, another waypoint. So here, time to stay, we're going to limit that down to 2 because we don't want random patrol point. Control click, and we want it to be random. Time to stay 0. We're going to leave that now because we're probably not going to actually witness it for a super long amount of time. And now we go to shift left click, that's a new one, out of NavMesh it says, control, close that. Alright, so it's still actually colliding. That's alright, so we'll just have to deal with that. So we go shift left click, there we go, that's on nothing. So what it's doing, when it's saying out of NavMesh, the waypoints have to click on the NavMesh itself. If they sit off the NavMesh, then it comes up with that error and it stuffs everything up. So you don't want that. It has to be on the NavMesh. Again, random patrol point. Set that up. Max visitors, time to stay. We'll set it back to 2. We're going to control left click, click. Yeah, and we'll leave them for that. So all good. Now that's random patrol point. This one's not set to random. That one is. Alright, cool. So now we can exit edit mode. Now we can turn our UI back on. Now, so that's our waypoint area. We're actually going to rename that as, say, wandering enemy. Alright, so that's our waypoints. Now, when we come to our enemy AI, if we come back here to the controller script, we've got room here for the waypoint area. So what we do is we go in our hierarchy, we'll just lock this in case we screw something up. We can select the wandering enemy from the hierarchy like this and just drag it straight onto here. Because it's got the v waypoint area script on it, it will fall straight into this slot here. So bam. So now this enemy AI is tied to that waypoint that we've just set up, that waypoint system. Now what it will do is it will go from waypoint 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I think it just stops there. It might cycle back again. It might actually just go through to them, just looping them again in cycles. But we don't want it to do that. We want it to basically figure out, maybe I'll walk to waypoint 2. No, I'm going to walk to waypoint 4 now, and just do it in a random pattern. We could do that by clicking on random waypoints. So now instead of going from 1, 2, 3, 4, it will just pick a number out of those 4 and head towards it. This is where your NavMesh and your collision with objects comes into play, because basically if that NavMesh was completely empty, when it comes from waypoint 2 across to waypoint 4, it'll walk straight through the block and that will look silly. Now that it's actually got to find a path around the block to get to the waypoint, it should walk in between the two, because that was where the NavMesh, if we look on it, yeah, it should be able to fit through there. It'll figure out that, oh yeah, I can get through that, no worries, and it'll walk between the blocks. We hope, anyway. So distance to change waypoint 1, patrolling stop distance 0.5, so that should be fine. So now that we've set that up, let's actually just watch it and see what it does when it comes through. Oh, I'm just going to adjust the screen size there so we can see what's going on. Oh, there we go. So the guy's already taken off and had a little bit of wander. I'm not going to get too close, because if I do get too close, it may not work in my favour. And it'll see me and it'll take it off the waypoint path, and we don't want that to happen just yet. So you can see it's standing there, taking a little bit of time. We did tell it to wait for a little while. I'm just going to chuck on the console in case something screws up. It does appear to be taking a little while, doesn't it? Oh, there we go, he's on the move again. So that's actually going between patrol points at that waypoint, which is interesting. So do all the all the patrol points before. Hang on, I'll have to set it to 0. So yeah, it gets to the waypoint and then it waits for 1. Or the patrol point, should I say. So I mean, this is, you'd set the patrol points to be a lot further away if you want it to actually look like it's a guard patrolling an area. Otherwise, if you've got something like a small marketplace and you've just got an NPC that's walking to the marketplace or whatever, you could have it so it wanders in those little spots and looks like it's walking between tables and craft stalls, things like that. So that's pretty cool. But I'm just hoping to see it move between the 2 blocks, because that's what I want to look at. There you go. So it looks like it's taken another waypoint, but it's taken waypoint 1, which is behind the blocks. No, 2. Okay, so yeah, so it didn't have to pass between the blocks. Damn it. I might alter that if I can. Alright, so let's click back on here. We've got our wandering enemy. Oh, I need to take that off. Enter edit mode. So let's have a look. Yeah, okay, so that's where that's going. Now if I control left, no, wrong button. Let's minus that. Control right, no. Wrong button again. Shift right click. There we go. There we go. So I'm going to drop these times to stay to 0, just so that it speeds up the process of how long it takes to actually get around to places. Again, 0, 0, 0, 0. Just for the purpose of this, because we need to see it move around and the way that it interacts with the different waypoints. Yep, they're all the same, and then that time to stay 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Yep, cool. Alright, play. So you can see now, instead of actually stopping, it's yeah, it's moving to the different waypoints, moving through them. What does it do at random? Now it's walking up to the other one. You can see he's having a good old time. So yeah, you put the wait periods in so that he's not just constantly walking around. You can have him stop so it looks like he's doing other stuff. No, don't choose that waypoint. Go to the... where I want you to move. I'm going to cut you. Oh, here it comes. And which waypoint's he going to go to? Oh, he's going to the furthest one again. That's right, now he's going to that one. Hopefully he cuts across to the other one. Excuse me. Come on, do it. Oh, yes, he's doing it. He's doing it. And there you go. He walks in between. Bam. I'm proud of you, but I'm going to have to cut you. Wait, no, don't cut me. Thank you very much. There we go. Alright, so yeah, so waypoints, really easy and also really effective, so that is great. Alright, cool. Alright, it has been several hours, so I'm actually going to call it there. Yeah, nobody else has jumped on asking questions anyway, so that's fine. I'll be back on again next time, and I'll do, hopefully the stream runs a bit better. yeah, and I'll be able to show off a few other things. I do have a couple of other community add-on stuff that I was going to show, but it's just taken so long getting through this stuff and explaining every single thing in the way that I do. So yeah, we'll save that for next time. Anyway, thanks for clicking on and watching. Hopefully it was a bit informative. If you do have any questions of stuff that you want to do, chuck it in on the comments, and let me know, and I can make it for next time. Hopefully put it through. Anyway, thanks very much for watching.